What About Vietnam? A podcast with Gary Newsom. The series where Curry talks with travellers about their experiences and adventures. Find out more about Vietnam from the people who have actually been there.
What about Vietnam?
Whether it's adventure, exploring the culture and cuisine, shopping, or just soaking up the sun. Let Carrie and her travellers pave the way for a magical holiday in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?
Xin chào and welcome to What About Vietnam. Travel has so much to offer us, and along with all the great experiences that we anticipate we're going to have, especially when we're planning a trip to Vietnam, possibly one of the most significant things that we don't think about in the first instance, and that is just what kind of positive footprint we're going to leave behind in the country. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about responsible tourism, impactful tourism, and social enterprise in Vietnam. I can't think of anyone better to open our eyes and our hearts to social enterprise than my guest today, Jimmy Pham. I feel very privileged to be talking with him as I've had the luxury of experiencing KOTO, the social enterprise restaurant and hospitality program Jimmy founded 23 years ago. I first recognised the restaurant and had a visit to it at the time. It was a sandwich shop at the time, located just near the Temple of Literature. I've been back several times and enjoyed the food there every time. But Jimmy's going to tell the background story to that sandwich shop. He's going to share with us some of the visitors that he's had the privilege to feed, and just how it's grown and evolved to what it is today, and just how many street kids he's been able to assist in that program. He'll share with us how social enterprise businesses are influencing change and breaking the poverty cycle in Vietnam. He's earned many prestigious awards for his work with youth and communities, including being awarded the Order of Australia back in 2013. In addition, he's earned many other prestigious awards, including the South Korea's most coveted award for philanthropy, the POSCO TJ Park Prize in 2017. He continues to be ranked in the top 40 most popular motivational speakers by Saxton Speakers, and he's Vice President of AusCham Vietnam. As a great influencer in the country, mentoring businesses and the travel industry to seek out ways that offering charity to beggars may not be the best way to go. He'll help us better understand why we should be maybe more curious about ways that can foster a program or future for a person to become educated so they can get a job and sustain themselves long term. And that's not to say that even looking at visiting different areas where you get to experience minority groups and putting back into those communities isn't also a great way to leave a great footprint. As Jimmy puts it, it's more important we leave footprints in people's hearts and look out for those opportunities that have a win-win scenario. I feel sure we're going to learn a lot more about travelling in Vietnam and how we can be that positive change when we visit. Please welcome Jimmy Pham to the show. Good morning, Jimmy. Thank you for joining me on the What About Vietnam podcast. These are certainly unprecedented times we are living in at the moment as a result of the COVID pandemic. So I really appreciate your time to come on the show.
No problem. Hi, Carrie, and welcome to all the listeners. Thank you for having me, and greetings from the capital of Vietnam.
Look, we're sitting here in the beginning of August 21, and Vietnam is currently experiencing its biggest fight against the Delta strain of COVID.
That's right.
None of us can ignore the impact of COVID on the health of Vietnamese, but I'm hoping in this episode we will be inspired by you, Jimmy, and your achievements in breaking the poverty cycle in Vietnam. So very much looking forward to this chat with you.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Now, that kind of leads me into a special announcement, news just to hand. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate you on winning the Walitz Global Citizen Award. Now, this award, I understand, recognises the excellence of individuals in their work to end extreme poverty. The Walitz Foundation exists to create a positive social impact locally and globally through innovative projects that empower individuals to meet their full potential and make a measurable difference. So super congrats on the award, Jimmy.
Thank you. And you know what, Carrie, just to add on to Walistz's is also based in Australia. And for all the Australians, when I spoke to them a couple of days ago, they were super excited because since its founding of the Global Citizen Award, this is the first time an Aussie got it as well. So,
okay, that's fantastic. Yeah. I didn't realize
this is one for Australia as well. So.
Yeah. Nice. That's fabulous. Jimmy, look, for everyone listening who's new to Vietnam and maybe learning a little bit more about the country through my podcast, could you please explain a little bit about KOTO, the social enterprise you started 20 years or so ago, and just kind of how it's evolved over time?
Sure. So I'm Australian Vietnamese, and I was born during a very, very tough time in Vietnam called the American War, so passionately called the American War, so 1972. And so this is just the tail end of the war. And for anyone who fought in the South, pretty much knew that the North has won, and then it's time to flee. So, that was around the area where a lot of people were escaping. And you see this horrific pictures of the rooftop of the U.S. Embassy, the helicopters, and the tank going through the president's palace, and etc. So my family fled. I was 2 years old, so we lived in a couple of countries, and then finally to Australia, called Australia home at the age of 8. And we come from a very kind of impoverished family, so we lived out of St. Vinny's coupons and all that kind of stuff. Because we have there's 6 siblings altogether. So I still do believe to this day we're in a lucky country. So we were blessed and surrounded by just wonderful people who helped us along the way. And Mom always ensured that we have an education and a roof over our head. So I think that's the best thing you can hope for. So so having that kind of values instilled in me, and also that education level and living in a big lucky country, I came back to Vietnam for the first time working in the tourism industry. And pretty much Vietnam was considered a third world country in those days. So when you see a white face, it's pretty much Russians. They're considered to be Russians. And poverty was everywhere. So when you see street kid with ulcers and blisters and, carrying coconuts that they got from the Mekong deltas and walk for about, 5, 10, 15, 20 kilometers a day just to sell $1, it breaks your heart. So I went for a walk one day in one of my visits, and the walk that I called that changed my life. I met 4 street kids, and that the following 2 weeks for me was also an eye-opener, but a life-changing situation where that 4th street kid I met, I took them to get some toothbrushes and toothpaste and all that kind of stuff, and then asked them to, I'm going to get them a bol pho, which is usually the traditional Vietnamese noodle soup. And then I asked them to come back the next day, and for the 2 weeks I was in Vietnam. But the number grew exponentially to 4 to 20, 30 to 50. At the end of the 2 weeks, I took out about 60 kids to dinner, and over a Coca-Cola, an extra bonus was a real treat for them. So there you see a lot of stories that you share in my broken Vietnamese at that time. But whatever it is, the most amazing thing about the Vietnamese people, and probably the Vietnamese street kids, commonly known in Vietnam as Bui Dai, which is called the dust of life, is that they have this radiant smile, as though they're telling you that they won't be defeated by their circumstances. So I witnessed one particular girl that was a beggar. Her mom was somewhere nearby, always very angry and very upset with life for some reason. And every time she sees me, she put her hand down. She said, "Give me money." And that particular night, she ran around in a circle where we're sitting having our dinner. And she said, "Mommy, I'll try better tomorrow," because she didn't make the quota. And her mom was somewhere nearby with a pulp steel pipe that was beating her. And subsequently, I found out that she never really made it to her adulthood later in life. So she, and I had a very important decision to make here. One was I could be that change that I want to see in the world, or I can go home and like a lot of tourists before me. So that was very tragic. I'm going to send money back to Vietnam. So I decided I want to be that change. So I came back I went back home, asked my mom permission. I was 24 years old. It was 1996. I had $200 in my pocket. I read 2 books on Vietnam, and I got a job as a tour leader for a Melbourne-based company called Intrepid. I came back to Vietnam. I spent the next 3.5 years traveling around the Indochina regions. And everywhere I go, street kids, I would feed them, shelter them, give them money, all that kind of stuff. Typically, the old Chinese proverb, give them a fish so they can eat every day. That's what I did. Young, arrogant, and think you know better. And then subsequently, 1999, those 9 street kids I looked after in Hanoi, in the capital, pulled me aside and said, basically, I got conned. What I was doing, in fact, wasn't helping them at all, but it was just a free ride that they thought that they, take advantage of. And instead of seeing that reaction of, oh my God, I'm never going to talk to you guys again, to very much about, okay, let's find another solution. Let's work on the next stage, which is basically giving you a fishing rod so you can go and fish for yourself. And there began the concept of no one teach one. And the idea was very simple. It was very much about hospitality, which is a skill that's transferable.
Yep.
It was about creating a family, which a lot of them don't have, and giving them the skills that they're going to need to have a sustainable life. And the name No One Teach One came about because we think that, education is the key to breaking the cycle of poverty. But education doesn't have to be the traditional sense. It can be learned by doing. And so the idea was basically, something, you should pass it on and paying it forward. So all that collected, and then KOTO was born in 1999. And the next 23 years, we built a remarkable program that helped not only the street kids at the beginning, but now, ethnic minority girls, kids in conflict with the law, kids that's been trafficked. Basically, the one that the society call it very difficult to teach. We take them in. We put them through a 2-year program that we include the Australian Vocational Education and Training curriculum at Box Hill Institute in Melbourne. Then we created this incredible life skills, including, going camping with Outward Bounds, do empowerment, do all this, reproductive health, which is all the things that they don't learn from school. And then lastly, is we put them through an English specifically designed for the hospitality. And at the end of the 2 years, Carrie, we got, empowered hospitality professionals that have a sustainable livelihoods and all that as well. So that's a nutshell what a program is.
It's an incredible story, because I know back in 99, I think you started with 9 kids and a sandwich shop. And, 20 years on, you've influenced thousands and given them life skills as well as tuition in hospitality, which is, as you say, transferable to, start their own businesses, work in major hotels, which I understand these individuals now are very sought after for their skills in some of the big names around town. So it's an incredible story. Just a quick one. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. If there was anything you would have done differently back in 99, say, what would that be?
My goodness, I remember in 1999, I got, because I couldn't cook, right? So a lot of people think I'm a chef by trade, and I'm not. So I got this woman's cookbook Mom sent over, and I was learning how to make frittata. Uh,
Oh, gosh.
and all these sandwiches for tourists that was catching an overnight train to central Vietnam. But we had a blast. Well, would I do anything different? Probably. I think there was a lot of things I could have done differently. But I think that, if in a very Buddhist, Zen kind of country as such as Vietnam, you believe that everything has a reason and a pathway that you need to walk on. And for me, it was a learning curve. I think that we became the first recognized social enterprise in this region alone. The British Council just released last year. There's 1 million social enterprise working in different disciplines here in this region. So to give you an idea of the kinds of influence you created just from this small sandwich shop. But I wouldn't be able to sort of like travel around the world and be an inspiration mentor to a lot of social entrepreneurs, if I hadn't walked that path, if I haven't created, have all that experience and been conned and have the FBI, was thinking I was an FBI at one time, and the government was I was on that watch list and all that kind of stuff. All that created this dynamicism I have in me today.
And if I could interject with just a maybe small happening when Bill Clinton decided to visit you, I think you were even more under the microscope, weren't you?
That's
Who is this Jimmy Pham, and what is this so special about his place that Bill Clinton wants to come and visit? So
that's correct. So this is after we've been open for like 2 months, we moved to a new location. We had such an incredible, difficult time because I had no money. So my mom went and borrowed from the bank.
Yeah.
Because no one at that time believed in what I was doing. And then I made it to front cover of an expats magazine called Time Out. And then subsequently, it was a very historic visit. So he was the first American president to visit the North. And where we were located, we were opposite a very tourist spot, which is the first university for the Temple of Literature.
Yes, beautiful place.
Exactly. It was an amazing place. So well, the scholars and all that goes to. Anyway, so he came visit there, and then he stopped over for lunch. The hoo-ha that surrounded that visit was quite intense. And I never thought in my wildest dream that I would be able to meet this guy. But like everyone else, I was, in the crowd looking over to see him and all that kind of stuff. And the next thing I know, I saw this parked black cars in front of KOTO, and I dashed over and I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Is this KOTO?" And I said, "Yes." And he's coming for lunch. And I said, "Oh my God." Yeah, so the next 2 hours was quite intense. So he had just in case anyone wondering, he had a Diet Coke, a latte.
He had a what?
A latte, a Diet Coke.
Oh, and a Diet Coke. How funny.
A falafel.
A falafel, okay.
Yeah. But, that was the very first time that we hosted someone such as important as Bill Clinton, the most important man. And I can see why he was such a charismatic kind of person.
Yes,
but since then, KOTO hosted, so the first time we were under the microscope, we were, we thought, why the hell would someone such as important as the President of the United States come and visit this little tiny sandwich shop? So there was a big question mark, understandably. So we got vetted severely for the next 4 years. But then, since then we hosted the Queen of Denmark. We had two Australian prime ministers already. The New Zealand prime minister. We had the head of UN, and a lot of Australian ministers came to KOTO. So all this was a privilege. But because every time someone important comes and they said that they saw the government CEO on the list KOTO, they go, yeah, it's normal. Not like the first time.
Let's just move now to, how travel has influenced your career and partnerships. As I understand, and you mentioned earlier about when you returned to Vietnam as a young man, it was through your support from Intrepid Travel, who at the time and still is very supportive of Vietnam tourism and social enterprise.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit how the travel industry has spurred on your career and played a role in KOTO and just, your future direction.
I feel so privileged and so blessed because my starting days as a tour leader, working for a company that so much believe in not about dominating a country when you enter it, but actually blend in and be part of the scenery. So that kind of values that was taught to me, and then subsequently every tourist that come to Vietnam through my group get to hear this. And so everywhere we go, we're trying to leave footprints in people's heart rather than and all that, and try not to make a big scene that we're tourists and big hoo-ha and all that kind of stuff. So that way, that was very much instilled in me. So I was very grateful for that kind of learning. Throughout now, like KOTO for the last 20 years have this what called a dream trip. Every year we take our kids to visit and see how beautiful the country is, and get them I guess benefit or experience what it's like to be on the receiving end of tourism. Because they're going to work in the tourism industry, they might as well know what it feels like to stay in a nice hotel,
To
be one. So it's so that influenced me, and that the intrepid days and working as a leader plays a very important part in that. And now everywhere, sustainability and giving back and all that kind of stuff is applied in everything I do because of the tourism, being a tour leader and know what it's like to go to Halong Bay and see rubbish everywhere and food waste and all that kind of stuff. So yes, so I think Vietnam has gone a long way, by the way.
And interesting, I know when we first began chatting a week or so ago, I was mentioning to you, I got to go to KOTO as being part of a tour group back in 2000, I think it was 2007.
Yep.
And that was when I really first got to hear about you and what you were doing with KOTO and all the rest of it. So, I feel very lucky to be talking to you now. But I think where I'd like to go with this is that, travel is becoming such a widely discussed topic in the sense that it expands now into sustainability, responsible travel, impactful tourism, and social enterprise. But for the average Joe, sometimes that's a bit academic and it's quite hard to know what that really means.
Yeah.
I mean, you've sat on the board in Vietnam for over 10 years with the Centre for Social Initiatives program, the CSIP.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how social enterprise resonates with you.
So social enterprise, for anyone who don't know the definition of social enterprise, basically it's using a commercial a business
model.
Business model and principle to achieve a social outcome or a social mission, as they call it. So you can be any business. And what you're saying is that it doesn't have to be difficult, because a lot of people does have it in them to try to do something positive. But it's always in a form of charity where you don't empower people, you actually do hands out. And a lot of tourism have fallen into that trap when they see that kind of poverty. And a lot of, like it or not, a lot of people, if you go to a tourist spot area, like in Hanoi, there's a Hoàng Kim Lake, which is a central lake. And you see a lot of street kids there in the old days, right? That's like, you have to question why they're there. To be there in the first place, how much premium they have to pay to be there. And they play to the T because, if you really want to help Vietnamese local, you go to where there's no tourists go, for example. But just to go back on the social enterprise. So basically what we're asking you to do is basically you can apply anything that you do in your business, whether you're hiring someone who come from that kind of background, or whether you're using a certain amount of your profit to help and empower people and build capacity and all that kind of stuff, or you in your organization for the environmental, you use a certain amount, 51% of the waste that can be donated and things like that. All this is all part of social, creating this better world for, whether it's environmental or whether it's community or whether it's, using technology or whatever, you can actually apply, right? Where we are in this region, unfortunately, people still like this whole concept of it makes them feel a lot better when they actually stand and give out handouts. And that's that's what the tourists tend to do. They do handouts. And that is not sustainable. You're creating this begging culture that is so 1990. It has to move forward. If you want to help someone, then go to an organization that helps those kids or give them a meal, even what they're going through that particular, rather than giving money. Going to the hill tribes, don't give them lolly because they have no access to dental, that kind of stuff. Or, aren't you hot in that, traditional hill tribe minority clothing, but they get dengue fevers and all that kind of stuff. So all this needs to be considered part of this sustainable and responsible tourism. And I think that's very important. To be, when you think of the new way to help, it's about social impact. It's about creating impact. It's about the sustainability. When you help someone, make sure that that person, there's a follow-up to it, rather than just give them money and don't know what's going to happen to them, And don't do it because it makes you feel good. Do it because it's an investment.
Yes. And I think what it opened up for me when I first started to put my social enterprise hat on in travel, which has really only been in, probably the last maybe 4 or 5 years in me thinking that way, was to be a bit more curious. I mean, there's a lot of, as you say, shops and businesses that are running in Vietnam.
Yeah.
That you find out, if you're curious enough to see that something you're purchasing is going to go back into a certain community.
Exactly.
So as you say, it's not about, I'm handing out, like something as a as a charity. I'm getting something in return. So I'm buying something which is of value to me, and then a portion of that is of value to that community or to that organisation. So I kind of invite my listeners to be curious when they do go to enjoy, shopping, and even shopping has changed so much in Vietnam. I can remember everything used to be copy, and I'd come home with 100 DVDs and CDs. I was terrible, Jimmy. I was terrible at that. But as the years and years, I've been going back and forth for about 14 years now.
Yeah.
I've become more responsible and more sociable in what I'm doing. And so when I talk to the owners of these shops, and then they tell me about, this was made in such and such, and the tribe or the community that make this, this comes from this. I mean, it was just a whole new world for me. It was. And it was refreshing to know that was happening.
Kerry, do you remember, 10 years ago in Australia, where every time you think about, 10, even 15, 20 years ago in Australia, if you buy anything organic, it's always so ridiculously expensive and it's not affordable to your average Joe, right? Social enterprise like that, how are we going to be able to grow if the community don't support us? You know what I mean? If you want quality products, you want all this availability, and you want accessibility and all that kind, help us to think. So you can actually help us to grow, and at the same time, the passing down on the price can be passed on to you. You know what I mean? So we can be competitive in the market, where like a hill tribe shirt is massively produced by machines. Where if you help on women economic empowerment projects that does do the same thing, by buying a lot of numbers, then you can still be very competitive to the one that's been selling. You know what I mean? So that's how the logic behind it of supporting social enterprises that actually with their products and goods and products and services as well.
Yeah. And I think it's taken a while, and you and I have been part of it, I guess, in watching the culture go from cheap, same, that association with Vietnam. Yeah. I mean, I got to see just in a recent trip I did 2019 with a lady who was buying some beautiful stuff from Vietnam and selling it in the Australian market. But, the pieces she was buying were from, some very enterprising and creative people in Vietnam that were designing garments, jewelry, all sorts of things, which wasn't cheap, but wow, it had the value to it. And especially when you knew some of that money was going to go back into a community where it came from. Yeah. It was just it was a win-win philosophy. So
and
I was
the beautiful thing about the Vietnamese people as well, and you should know this, is because the new generations, like 70% is under 30, 32, 35 now. So we have a very young population. And a lot of us are now educated, very educated, where, before the parents' generation is different because it was during the war and they had no access to education. So the ability to innovate and create is actually quite high now. So it's not about the copy products and things like that. It's more about just some incredible ideas and arts and all that kind of stuff, is here in Vietnam.
Where do you see the biggest changes that are going to happen with travel? And I'll preface this by saying probably Vietnam was almost reaching over tourism, as in the sense of the really big buses turning up into towns, etc. Ha Long Bay was getting chock-a-block with over tourism. I mean, do you see that, there will be some positives to come out of the COVID story along the lines of being responsible in tourism in the future? How do you see it looking post-COVID?
The tourism and the hospitality, two industries, has been heavily affected by the COVID, and which is all and the education sector as well. So all the schools are closed and the training centers and all that kind of stuff, and we're in the midst of that three industry. So I think that everyone needs to eat. I think that the hospitality industry will still need to go back to, because like it or not, I think people is craving for this human interaction and social skills and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. And I think that should be encouraged and that should never go away. Even technology takes over and things like that. I think the way we look at tourism is going to change and more responsible, more humble, rather than massive, going for the massive numbers. I think that people are going to reevaluate the way they do tourism and how it's going to be most useful and most and be competitive by being creative and innovative, as well as how they do their hotels and how will they stay, and the homestay is going to be different. And focus a lot on the wonderful landscape and the natural beauty and the environment aspects of tourism, which we don't do before. It's always about shopping, and all that kinds of, which is, it's just one part, but it's not everything about tourism. And Vietnam has such a diversity in rich culture, incredible food. Oh my God, the food. And I think that, to take that away in tourism, it's just going to be tragedy.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think my experience with Vietnamese so far has been that they do have a very entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah. They can pivot on a heartbeat. If there's, something they need to change, they can do that. And I've seen it already happening in COVID times, where certain businesses were very dependent on travellers. Now they're becoming, home takeaway businesses and being able to produce food like that. But you're right, Vietnam's got an amazing landscape to experience. And I think as much as my podcast is for some people saying, how come you're doing a travel podcast in the middle of COVID? And I go, well, I think it's important to keep Vietnam on people's radar.
Right, exactly.
And information is gold, isn't it? When a traveller has been to Vietnam and they come away and they've done the Ha Giang Loop, or they've been up into Barbie Lake, or they've been to Kang Chai, or, some beautiful regions where they can explore. There's social enterprise also in these regions. Those stories are rich for people to to hear in the future, because when they're trip planning, I'm hoping they'll listen to that, or they'll listen to something that we're talking about, Jimmy, and go, I want to go to Vietnam with that headset. I want to go with a bit more knowledge when the doors do finally open up again.
But please remember also that, by going to Ba Bay Lake and, to Ha Giang and all that you're actually helping the livelihood of people. They rely on that tourism as a source of income, and it's a lifeline for them. So probably, if anything, there's a takeaway from this tourism, is actually that. It's not just only about supporting the big hotels or whatever you tickle your fancy. But when you start going to the beautiful hill tribe minorities, and when you start going to all these remote areas that Vietnam has so much of, a bundle of, is that, you're supporting locals, and their livelihood, so, and that's responsible travel.
And, that's probably a good way to possibly finish up, Jimmy, in talking about how does a traveller leave a positive imprint or footprint on Vietnam. And, you're talking about us when we do go to Vietnam is opening up our minds and our options as not just in the, as you say, in the big resorts and things like that. So much more to Vietnam to explore.
Yeah. I think when you leave Vietnam, if you can make a friend, then then you achieve your goal. If you leave Vietnam, then you're learning something more than before you came. That's something that you achieved your goal. Lastly, if you go to Vietnam and you're supporting someone because you're there, then you've done your bit as well. So it's about educating, it's about contributing, it's about leaving something behind that. And I think for Vietnam, we really want you to come back. We want to be like Thailand, where year after year after year, like you, Carrie, for, instead of just one time and see you later, I'm not going to come back. We want you to come back because it's a destination for everything from luxury to backpacking to all sorts of stuff,
Absolutely. I mean, people say to me, "Oh, do you think you're going to run out of things to talk about?" And I said, "You've got to be joking." Exactly. I've got, I could go on until I, keel over and talking about what there is to do in Vietnam, because, as you said, I go 2-3 times a year, and every time I visit, I find something else new. I meet a different person. I remember meeting a lovely girl who ran a cooking class, and I had a fabulous time with her a few years ago, and I've remained good friends with her. And so, as you say, it's life-changing, I think, a visit to Vietnam. It has that effect on you.
Absolutely.
And I feel very lucky.
And for Vietnamese as well, we're very honorable, I guess, and we're very loyal. And I think that's some of the characteristics of the Vietnamese people, and that's what makes it so unique unique travel experience for people coming to Vietnam.
I just want to say thank you very much for coming on the show and talking with you. Congratulations again on your on winning the award. Very well deserved. And just want to wish you all the best. Be safe, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you to everyone, and please stay safe and good luck to everyone.
Thank you for listening. Check out the episode notes for more information.
What about Vietnam?
Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review, and stay tuned for more fun adventures in Vietnam.
What about Vietnam?